Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is your boy Justin Simmons with the Denver Broncos. Shout out to Anthony Mitchell and the STL Ministries who are bringing big things to the community. Link up with them and financially support their youth ministry with the link down below. So if you guys go ahead and click the link below, you'll be able to help out and support STL Ministries, and Anthony Mitchell and everything that they're doing. And so go ahead and check it out. Go ahead and support doing big things for the community, and always great to support people like that. All right, guys. Peace.
Good morning, evening, afternoon. It all depends on where you are hearing this at live. But you are again with another episode of the End Zone Club, where you get to kick it with your host, Anthony Mitchell, where we have conversation that is designed to push you from potential to purpose. You guys like how I got deep on you real quick? Anyway, got a brand new microphone, so I'm excited to test it out, try it out, see what kind of new audio quality improvement, enhancements that we begin to experience from this point on. But hey, so let's just get into it, because we're on the tail end of another NFL draft. And there were going to be some fans who were ecstatic because their team went out, handled business, and knocked it out the park. And then there's going to be fans such as myself who are going to be not as happy. Now, it's probably one of the only San Francisco 49er fans that you guys know was not happy with the draft, but I'll deal with it. But speaking of the NFL draft, I want you guys to drop in the comments below how you felt, how your team did. But that's only if you're a sports fan. If you're not a sports fan, let's just sit this one out. But one thing that makes the NFL so unique is that it is a conglomerate, well-oiled machine. It is a business. It has been in existence long before I was born, and will probably be in existence long after I'm gone. But one thing that makes the NFL so unique, and it's probably something that at some point of life, if you ever want to be an entrepreneur, a business person, a community, a layman, teacher, whatever, you have to deal with this idea of working with a brand. The NFL is a brand. At the end of the day, when you have a brand such as the NFL, you will do what you have to protect your brand. And that's something the NFL does every year with the draft. That's one takeaway I always gain from watching the NFL, is just the intensive studying it does into each person it plans on drafting. The teams, hats off to them, they don't just analyze and evaluate guys based on their talent and talent alone. They want to know, how are guys away from football? What is their propensity to get into trouble? How do they relate with teammates and work as a team? What are their hobbies? Because one thing about it, when you get that many young people together from all different walks of life, it is guaranteed that they will not be homogenous in the music they like. A few years ago, we had a player that when they drafted him, he started licking his hands like they were paws, and he was grooming himself. That was an instant red flag to see. So it wasn't a surprise when the young man didn't really pan out for the team, because he had interests in other areas that didn't align with the values possibly of learning his craft. So one takeaway I take away from how the teams go about day by day gathering information on these young recruits who may eventually be draft picks, and it's something that I think we as adults could probably take more in life. As these players begin to grow, now not just talking about the NFL, but into the NBA, there are certain pages I have torn from various athletes, such as like Shaquille O'Neal. My generation, Shaq was one of the most marketable NBA players / athletes because he had this great charisma, this big, beautiful smile, you could just use him from car insurance to selling Taco Bell, right? But within reading one of Shaq's books, I believe it was a biography he wrote when he had just gotten signed with the Lakers, and he was really reflecting on his journey, he dropped a nugget. And he talked about not endorsing brands that he personally had no connection to. So what stands out to me with Shaq is, as marketable of a guy as he was, I mean, at one point Shaq was an athlete, he was a rapper, he was an entertainer. I remember Shaq in movies like Blue Chips and Shazam, or was it Kazam? Which one was it where he played the big genie? And then there was Blue Steel. He was like this RoboCop superhero kind of guy, right? But you know, in this line of work, what they do as athletes, a lot of times they gain an unfair reputation, kind of like politicians even, that the most important thing that matters to them is the bottom line, which is the dollar. But Shaq, I got to commend him, because I learned something about him and from him in that moment, was that it's important to have a sense of balance in what you're willing to put your name on. Now, for those of you who are listening, I want to pivot in this direction, because I think one of the most important things that we could put our names on is our own personal brand. And that's who we are and what people see us as. I got a very important piece of advice one time. I was trying to go after this particular job, and I asked a guy that had been around that particular job for a while. I was like, what's the one piece of advice you tend to give to all young people, especially that are interested in doing this full time? Because the money with this particular career was very lucrative, easily 6 figures and better. And he said the one piece of advice that I like to give young people, or anyone interested in this position, is to treat every day like an interview. Right? Of course, everybody knows we have good days, we have bad days, but treat every day like an interview, meaning you never know who the next person you meet, the impression that you leave on them, how that may be the very word of recommendation or referral that you need, or maybe the very person that's going to block you from walking through these doors. So even when you're having bad days, smile or whatever. Now, unpacking that for a moment, I think that's a very important piece of advice when identifying, first of all, ourselves as one of the biggest brands that we could be. Because in so many other areas, we also, as parents, kind of feed off of this advice, and we kind of parlay it in other areas. Being a parent of an athlete, something we always encourage them, as well as young people who are prospective employees to be. You're looking at a career, you're trying to get in college. Be mindful what you post on social media. Be mindful of not just your statuses or the memes you share or the videos that you like, which contain maybe sometimes lewd commentary or bad, or like really bad language. Be careful, because there are sometimes people in power, people in decision-making positions, people that have a final say or veto power on how you connect with their vision. And sometimes your social media content can or can't block you from walking through your next assignment. So be mindful of that. Even in the military, I remember we going through classes and basic training where we were told, and no uncertain words, that yes, before we give you a security clearance, we do pay attention to the sorts of things that you post. Are you highly offensive? These sorts of things. Not only before you got in, but most importantly, after you get in. So when you're going through these classes, sometimes you may not see just how far your social media content goes until, in my example, one of the first times that I got a chance to work with a dignified or around a dignified personality was the president, former president. And I remember, president. He's dignified. He's got the highest office, I say, not just in the United States, but in the world. And you get a chance to work with the various security protocols and agencies that are in place that ensure his safety. So they come, they do recon, they make sure that he's not in a position that even within the military ranks that you don't have bad people that may have bad intent. And you don't think about this. Sometimes you may find a meme that's funny, and maybe it depicts the president in a certain light. You post a few of these pictures. Maybe you like some political commentary that is not in favor of the president. Right there, you've got 2 strikes against you. You don't see it. It's just like, oh, this is how I was raised. This is just how we were taught. But the overall the overall view, however you want to say it, is that maybe you might show an affinity to, maybe, I don't want to say being a threat, but maybe it's not conducive for you to be in this vicinity with this dignitary. And from that point, I've worked with the vice president a couple of times, as well as others. But what I'm saying is, you as a brand, sometimes it's most important to identify what positions you put yourself in. From your likes, your interests, your image goes a long way. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to highlight this particular topic is within working in the community. Every year, people see us taking the grassroots way of doing things, and it's not uncommon for people to say, well, why don't you go about getting corporate sponsorships? Now, let me preface this by saying I am not opposed to corporate sponsorships, but after having worked with several of the world's biggest companies, I understood a process for gaining these corporate sponsorships sometimes means that you have to lose who you are and the identity of what you're a part of. Now, let me be very clear when I say this. I'm not saying that corporate sponsorships are wrong, but let's dig into this a little more. Earlier on in my ministry, in my journey, in my career, however you want to phrase this, in my vocation, with my skill, I worked with companies like Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper, 7-Up, Frito-Lay, these sorts of places. And a reoccurring topic that I would always have with management, whether I was going after promotion, whether I was trying to cross-train into something new, whether I was just trying to get a connection with them on some things we were doing, you always have these conversations about where you see yourself with the company, understanding what you represent, who you're not only just at work, but anytime you're in a uniform. So if you're going home from work in uniform, what are you representing? And sometimes what that does is that aligns with the company's core values and their mission and their statement. And one thing about it, within core values, people like to separate church and state. And I think that's fair. I think it's fair. I'm not saying you keep God out by separating, but sometimes what that does is it takes away that large umbrella that allows for some of the weird things people believe to be accepted under their mission and mantra. So with that said, I have found out a lot of the company guidelines, anything that is religious based or political affiliated, or anything that could be considered offensive to people, they tend to shy away from. So in order to align with their sponsorships, sometimes you have to give up. And for us, who we are as individuals here at the End Zone Club, a lot of what we have done has centered around religion, has centered around spirituality, has centered around inspiration and empowerment, not in a very abusive way, not in a overbearing way, but there is an underlying thought that maybe one morning I may want to get up and make a post that says God is good. Maybe one day I may want to, before an event, get a few guys or ladies together and maybe want to say a prayer. Doesn't make me a bigot. It just means that my faith is important to me. And sometimes when you want to align with these corporate sponsorships, which early on, I'll be honest, I did reach out to several major corporations and it was always referenced back to their community guidelines. That's the nice little way of saying no. But it's a learning experience, because as a brand, we're all brands. We all have things and interests to protect. And you do have to see the big thing, that a major corporation can really be troubled by connecting with the wrong individual. So I don't fault anybody that's ever told me no, but it's just a reality that sometimes you're going to be told no. But with that also said, I have to shout out some of the major companies that have worked with us more from a position of in-kind customer donation supports. Got to shout out EA Sports. I mean, EA Sports for over 20 years has supported us with in-kind donations. They have supported a lot of what we have done. So I got to shout them out because I am appreciative of that relationship. Also got to give a shout out to Honey Stinger. I'm a brand ambassador for them. Sometimes they donate product, allow me to use their logos on various things we do, but we align with their fitness values. So I got to say, shout out to them. Also, Soar No More. They've been another supporter. They have donated muscle relaxers and things to the outdoor events we've done with kids and have given just various things. I got to shout them out. I look at the University of Auburn. They have supported us in different capacities. They have sent alumni out. They've sent products for us to raffle for various events. They have sent school supplies. I mean, they have rocked with us, as well as LSU, University of Alabama, Ole Miss. We have gotten support. But we are very careful that when identifying as a brand, we don't want to do or say anything that is going to push people away. But the overall event that I am trying to drive us to and enjoy is that sometimes as a brand, you have to understand, young people, that who you are every day needs to align with maybe where you ultimately want to go in life. That's why when I leave my house every day, I heard Coach Primetime, aka Deion Sanders, he said, I never have a bad day. What he is pushing with his message is that ultimately he takes control over his life. He takes ownership, he takes whatever. And that's a good point to have, because if you're wanting to have anything in life, approach yourself, approach your situation, approach your objective, approach it as a brand. And that is that whatever representation of myself I am showing is the results I'm trying to get back. So if you're haphazard in your approach, you're not going to get it. If you're bad attitude, bad outlooks, bad language, bad body signs, you're not going to get it. Treat yourself as a brand. You're something that you don't just want people to connect to, but you want to have your own movement. Does that make sense? We used to always have the saying that I'm a force by myself, but I'm a movement when we're together. That's ultimately what you need, because as a brand, as an individual that's got access to all of God's blessings over your life, you're still not going to be able to do it alone. I often think about every promotion I've gotten, how there's been somebody in some room that's been affirming my name in a way that makes people want to consider me. But do you know what that comes from? Every letter of recommendation that's ever been written, every word of referral that's ever been given, anybody that's ever acted as a witness on my behalf or a liaison or has spoken up for me, my family, has always been because of the representation we have given. So stay true to yourself. Stay true to your brand. Some things that you do may be not wrong, but it may not be good for your brand. If flexing is not wrong, just do think about it. Is this good for my brand? If cussing is legal, tattoos on my face is legal, all of these are conversations that you have to have. Is it good for my brand? I often make decisions based on how is this going to affect my family? How is this going to affect my wife? How is this going to affect my legacy? And if it's like, it's not going to be the best move for that, then sometimes I'll step away and won't engage. I did want to add a story to this topic that I think will further highlight another reason I have been very careful about approaching corporate sponsorships. But several years ago, one of the cities we were living in found ourselves going after a grant that would have made an event we were doing possible. And coincidentally, I was approved for the grant. Got an email stating I was approved after filling out all the paperwork and going through all the channels. And coincidentally, at the same time, conversely, there was a major trying to see how to word this, but there was a disturbance going on in the city that there was no way around it. It was just like a civil rights disturbance where a young man had been killed at the hand of some cops. And of course, us being in ministry and different things and knowing the family and knowing the young man and having an affinity, the biggest thing we wanted was knowing that the young man passed away. He left kids behind. Wanted to make sure that at least there was a sense of justice and that the due process he deserved was given. That's all we asked. And also that his kids be taken care of. So within the situation, there was kind of like a line drawn in the city, so to speak. I hate to use that, where if you thought there was justice that should have been served, and it's not even anything you had to be vocal about, because of course the news is always doing their job of causing the division. But somehow we were blacklisted as a result because we thought he should have gotten justice. And with that said, the grant that I was approved for was taken and sent to another community organization that aligned separately. But I didn't know about this when I was given an email. Hey, your money's going to be available on this day. Come pick it up. Went to pick it up, and guess what? I started noticing the lady that was distributing the money was getting an attitude with me, just randomly, and it was very strange. So every time I called, there's no answers, and I'm being yelled at for no reason. I'm not even coming with this energy, and she's very obstructive, and I'm like, this is weird. So again, going back to the brand, I understand that, of course, some people are in positions maybe they don't like. I don't know, but she was secretly emailing the committee because she couldn't find the money. Well, come to find out, the money was given elsewhere, and instead of maybe coming and telling me what was going on, instead I was kind of given the cold shoulder. But thankfully, somebody that sat in position on that committee was out of town the whole time, and we had found favor with this individual. We had found respect, and they loved what we were trying to do with the kids or for the kids, and they spoke up on our behalf. They went to bat for us and told me, hey, listen, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is exactly what's going on, but because you were given your word that this is what the city is going to do, give me a few moments. And I kid you not, this individual went out of his way to make sure we got the sponsorship that we had rightfully been given as taxpayers. And I appreciated it, but it gave me this reality that who I was, the mission that we were seeking to accomplish, how important that was, and the overall event that when we needed it, that interview that I was talking about earlier that we partake in every day, that was the minute that I was hired for that job. Does that make sense? That job for me at that moment was walking through that door and providing this for the kids. But there's going to be events that you guys, jobs, that interviews that you're going to want, in, whether albeit relationships, whether it's an admission letter into colleges and various things. But who you are today is your ultimate corporate sponsorship. So with that said, it's been a blessing to be able to align our vision with people that will also think like-minded as we do in other areas, and that's family's important, men are important, women are important, children are important, and we're going to do all that we can to be a blessing to each of those segments, because ultimately, again, we're a force by ourselves, but we're a movement I told y'all guys, I'm a country boy. Sometimes these words are hard, but we did it. This is another edition of the End Zone Club. I could go on and on and on about this, but do know that I am thankful for all of the support we have gotten from you guys and all the endeavors that we have done. Continue to like, share, rate, and subscribe to this podcast, because without your support, none of this is possible. So until next time, over and out.